Welcome to EcoEye. Later in the show, we take a noisy trip down the dual carriageway. We meet Ireland's most endangered seabird and explore a new approach to renewable energy, growing your own fuel. But first, here's one of the world's most stupid inventions, a toxic waste incinerator for the home. Don't laugh. Your neighbour might have one. The quality of Irish air has improved a lot in the last few decades. We've moved on from the choking smog of the 1980s to a point where there's virtually zero tolerance for any kind of smoke. But toxic fumes are still belching into the sky on a daily basis, and some of the worst polluters are closer to home than you might think. This is the illegal practice of backyard burning. If you own one of these contraptions, and plenty of people do, prepare for a bit of a shock.
The irony of backyard burning is that offenders, particularly persistent burners of waste, are poisoning themselves, their neighbourhood, their families, their local communities.
From the day that waste charges were introduced, all manner of supposed money-saving scams have appeared. At one end of the scale, there are the illegal dumpers and casual fly tippers. At the other, there are the backyard burners, with specially adapted bins and a mistaken belief that they're doing us all a favour.
There is a history of backyard burning, particularly in rural areas and in areas that haven't been serviced by waste collectors in the past. And in some of those areas, people would traditionally have burned waste in a barrel or in a pit at the back of their building, and some businesses even would have engaged in burning.
Are there many people in the Wicklow area burning household waste?
We believe there is. It's very difficult to judge it, because once waste is burned, the evidence is gone. But possibly up to 20% of people, householders, are actually burning their waste.
The nature of modern packaging has changed radically. Like many of the products we consume, food comes complete with attractive but highly complex packaging. It's bad enough when buried, but it's lethal when burned.
Plastics, wood, metals, paper, all of these things, and all of them create pollutants that are damaging to human health and to your environment.
Well, dioxins are benzene ring compounds. They're compounds that in very, very small concentrations are very hazardous, and particularly hazardous to people's health, and they can accumulate in the environment. So they can accumulate in air, in water, or in the soil.
How bad is burning household waste in backyard burning like this?
Very, very bad, because the US EPA have, within the last couple of years, done a lot of work on how much the pollutants are, how bad they are.
These figures reveal a stark picture. It takes only 200 people burning their waste in these uncontrolled conditions to produce as many dioxins as a modern incinerator for 120,000 people. At the heart of the problem, it seems, is a lack of awareness. Most people are just oblivious to the dangers they're putting themselves in.
It's because of the differences in the controlled and uncontrolled conditions. In your backyard, in your fireplace, it's an uncontrolled condition. You've got low temperatures, probably a high amount of moisture, low oxygen, there's no filters on it, there's no controls, there's nobody taking the dirt out of it, basically. So dioxins accumulate in your body, they're a bioaccumulator, and they last there for maybe 7-10 years.
This is a national problem. EcoEye found these bins readily available throughout the whole of Ireland.
If you burn in a rural area, it's going to go where animals are feeding. Dioxins in particular dissolve in fats, so the milk and the fat meat that you eat is going to be full of dioxins, and it'll just keep on going, and for as long as you're burning in your local area, you're polluting your area, your food, your health, your neighbour's health. That's not on.
The EPA completed a survey last year, which was published in December, which shows that we produce about 73% of the dioxins in the country from backyard burning.
Is it illegal now to burn in your backyard like this?
It is, yes. It's illegal to burn waste under the Waste Management Act without a permit or a licence.
Why is it still going on?
I think it's because people don't want to pay the level of costs that waste are nowadays for landfilling. So to avoid those costs, people try to burn. I think a lot of people also think that it's okay to burn. Haven't we always done it?
Yeah.
We always did it in the
Yeah, we
past.
did it in the past, of course.
Yeah, so what's the difference now? And the difference is the materials that we burn are very different. We've plastics, we've treated woods, we've lots of metals that we didn't have before.
So what should we do?
Reduce as far as possible. And that's really, really important that we as consumers have a choice not to buy packaging. Secondly, to recycle wherever possible and however possible. And then the third really important one for backyard burning is compost your garden waste. Don't send it up in flames. Make good, sound compost mulch out of it. And that's the best possible thing to be doing with it.
So if people now find others burning waste in the backyard, or builders burning waste, or, small businesses around the country burning their waste, what should we do about it?
Report it to your local authority. All the local authorities around the country want to beat this problem, and we want to hear from people who are suffering the problem, that see the evidence with their own eyes, and then we can take action.
Backyard burning is a false economy in every sense. Why risk prosecution and fines? Why pollute the air and poison the soil when you can nourish it? Recycling your paper, plastic, glass and aluminium may cost a little time and effort, but at least it's not your health going up in smoke. Every year, the Little Tern leaves its wintering ground in West Africa and embarks on a hazardous journey over thousands of miles. The final destination for about a fifth of the migrating birds is this 10-mile strand between Wicklow Town and Greystones, known locally as the Breeches. To the little terns, the nesting site is idyllic. An isolated pebble beach near shallow waters filled with fish fry and sand eels. Lately, the apparent solitude of Kilcool Beach has been disturbed. The once thriving little tern is not only on the endangered species list, it's Ireland's rarest seabird. So what's going wrong?
There's lots of things that can go wrong. I mean, we've broken it down into human disturbance, ground predators, avian predators, high tides and flooding, global warming, the lot. So they really have to put up with everything, and they live on the edge. When the birds arrive here, say it could be the May bank holiday weekend, it could be a very sunny weekend, there's going to be lots of walkers out for them. So that's sort of nearly flags up the first problem, that these birds are occupying a space which we'll use as recreational walkers, even as bird watchers. We'll come down here and we like to walk about.
Little terns like shingle beaches because they're very well camouflaged against those when they're sitting on their nests, and the eggs also look like small pebbles. They're practically impossible to see if you're just walking along. We've set up a hide here today so you can actually get in a bit closer and have a look at what's going on in the nest, so let's go and see. A little tern is an extremely graceful bird. Graceful is the first word that comes to mind when you look at them, really. Terns have often been called sea swallows just simply because they have such a graceful, light-winged flight. Little terns are the smallest terns breeding in Britain and Ireland, and that just somehow makes them even more special.
Terns normally arrive about the first week in May, around the bank holiday weekend. If we're not actually set up here, people start ringing us and telling us the terns are back. And they set about, there's courtship displays for the first week or so, and then they'll set up their nesting, which is just a scrape in the shingle. And then the eggs are laid. It's all over come August, really. Birds will then gather and probably fly south, say, to Wexford Harbour, and they can stage their journey then all the way back down to West Africa with the young birds in tow.
Little terns are Ireland's rarest breeding seabird. Education really is the key here. The kids especially are extremely enthusiastic, and we've got a bunch of kids here today from St Bridget's School in Kilcool, and they're going to be helping us out a bit. You can't tell them enough about the little terns, and once they get a look through a pair of binoculars or down a telescope and they can actually see a bird on a nest, they're absolutely thrilled.
Obviously they go home, they'll tell the parents maybe the nice day they had down at the beach and what's here.
Is that a tern?
It's very important to get goodwill, and in Birdwatch Ireland we'd recognise that to protect birds or habitats you've got to involve people, and it's all about people.
The best form of defence for the little terns in this area at least is to have wardens on duty and a number of information boards and information leaflets to inform the public and educate them as to why the little terns also deserve part of the beach here.
Predators like foxes even hedgehogs, they'll hit you at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. So we have a rota going, and it is a 24-hour job, so very tough on people and very hard.
You're nervous enough about the birds as it is, and you're lying awake and you suddenly hear the bird's dread and you have no idea what it is, and you literally have to come screaming out of the caravans up here, shine the torch around, see if it's a fox. If it's not, then try and work out what is disturbing them, really. The number of colonies in Great Britain and Ireland has decreased significantly over the last 15 years. If they're not successful in one year, they may think twice about coming back to the same place the next year. And once a colony has had several bad years, it may be that the birds start to leave this site, and once they're gone, how do you get them back? It's probably impossible.
There are probably only 10 or less actual little tern nesting sites left in Ireland. I'd say within 2 or 3 years, if you've no protection scheme here, I'd say due to low breeding productivity, the birds would disappear. They'd move on. They actually are at a critical stage. If there's only 200 pairs maybe in the whole country, you'd lose this species altogether unless there was at least one protection scheme. Birds indicate health in the environment. Birds, as we all know, have wings, and if things aren't right, they'll take off and go somewhere else. So they are one of the best indicators, and it's really our job to monitor these indications and to ensure that they have protection, give them every chance to actually succeed in their breeding season.
According to recent EU studies, it's the most pervasive pollutant of the modern world. Overexposure can cause stress, anxiety, insomnia, and a reduction in the overall quality of your life. Road noise has been a part of city life for decades. In recent years, it has become a rural problem too, and is about to get a lot worse.
Noise is becoming more of an issue due to the fact that we are building more roads than ever before. Bigger roads, average speeds along these roads are increasing, and as the speeds increase, the noise level increases. People's expectations have risen. They expect more from their environment. They expect a better quality of life, and as part and parcel of that, they don't expect to be disturbed by intrusive noise from roads.
We've estimated in Dublin City Council that over 7% of our road network within the city are causing problems in relation to noise levels.
Noise levels do increase with an increase in traffic. So if we look at the roads in Ireland as a whole, the average level of noise on roads would be increasing. But with the new roads, we're trying to keep them away from people, so the level of exposure to that noise is tending to fall.
The impact of noise depends on various factors, from its intensity to its duration, frequency, even the time of day. It's intrusive, but because we adapt to it, the effect is almost subliminal. In cities, where road noise mingles with the sounds of construction, ventilation systems and so on, the problem is highly concentrated. And noise can rise to a level that we find intolerable.
In Dublin City, we're finding that as the population increases, everyone wants to have a car, they all want to drive it, they all want to use the roads, they're using it to drive into the city. And obviously, the more cars on the road, the louder, the noisier it's going to get. Currently, if you are in O'Connell Street or on the Quays and your mobile went off, you'd have to find a quiet alcove somewhere to listen to your mobile.
Areas of natural tranquility are increasingly under pressure in today's cities.
If you're standing side by side, you would generally just be able to hear each other speaking in a conversational tone. But if you are across the street and somebody shouted at you, they'd seriously have to shout at you to be heard above the traffic. We believe that the Dublin Port Tunnel, which will take traffic, take the source, enclose it and put it underground, that will improve the noise quality. If we take the heavy goods vehicles out of the city, it has knock-on effects. Once the traffic moves faster, more efficiently, there's less noise, less air pollution. When you're walking along the street, you don't have fumes and noise belching out at you from the lorries. You can listen to your mobile.
Although the port tunnel is designed to reduce congestion and air pollution, the absence of articulated trucks could yet make Dublin a quieter place. Then again, city dwellers are used to noise. What about everyone else? In the coming years, billions will be spent constructing new roads. Vehicle sales are rising every year in every county, and noise levels are increasing dramatically. Strangely, not everything you think might reduce noise actually does.
One of the most common myths is that planting in the form of bushes or trees can reduce noise by an appreciable amount. In truth, it takes a very dense belt of trees or planting to reduce noise by any amount whatsoever. The planting can have some benefits in the form of screening the vehicles, screening the road visually, and the old adage, out of sight, out of mind, comes to play. The first thing to consider is getting the noise as far away as possible from people to try and minimise their exposure to noise. Then you would look at alternative road surfaces that have lower inherent noise level emissions. You would look at earth bunds, concrete barriers, proprietary timber barriers. Every new road scheme is assessed by preparing a 3D computer model of the road. The model includes the topography, details the traffic movements, nearby houses, and everything that could have a bearing on the level of noise emissions from the road. We then predict the likely noise level, we compare it with appropriate guidelines, and if necessary, we specify mitigation measures to control the noise. This is a good example of a modern motorway where steps have been taken to control noise emissions affecting residents. The road surface itself is constructed from porous asphalt, which cuts down on the level of noise emissions. And in the distance we can see an earth mound with a proprietary concrete barrier on the top, which is protecting the houses immediately behind the motorway. This is a perfect example of a working noise mitigation measure. The motorway is just a few metres the other side of the barrier, and yet the noise level here is perfectly acceptable.
Noise models make the placement of these barriers more effective. Here you can see the barrier ends where it's no longer needed. And for those less keen to live beside the Berlin Wall, timber frames can be used as a more attractive and equally effective alternative. Without barriers, these houses would require triple glazing and special ventilation systems to fend off noise and pollution.
The EU recognise that noise is a growing problem. They've estimated that about 8 billion people throughout Europe are impacted by noise. And they've also estimated that it costs €12 billion in health costs, environmental costs.
Ultimately, noise mitigation measures only address the symptoms. What we really need to tackle is the cause. Road noise is a result of our dependency on the private car. What we need now is a combined approach to road, rail and public transport, where people, not cars, are the priority. There can be few people unaware of the harmful effects of burning fossil fuels. Of course, we've used them anyway. They've been cheap, they've been convenient, and they've given us two things we can't do without: heat and power. But the days of oil, coal and gas are numbered. Clean, renewable fuels are gaining ground all the time. Paul, wood must have tremendous potential in Ireland for energy.
Wood is one of the best resources that we have. We have the best growing climate in Europe. I think we'll have wood energy cooperatives in the not too distant future. I would say even in the next year or two we'll have wood energy cooperatives selling energy in the form of wood chips or wood pellets. It's a very nice business to be in, and the Austrians have shown us the way forward. I would say a €1 billion business for farmers over the next few years. So a €1 billion a year crop is certainly something that I guess the farming community will be interested in.
EcoEye visited Austria to see how the country turned their plentiful natural resource into a renewable industry, and in the process reversed the fortunes of an ailing farm sector. Christian, why have wood fuels taken off so successfully here in Austria?
The driving force in Austria were the farmers. Because in Austria, like you see here in this property, there is forests, there is farmland. Farmers have both trees and crops. And the farmers were really looking for a possibility to market their trees with a greater commercial success. And the basic idea was, let's not sell wood, let's sell heat. Let's sell renewable energy. These projects offer advantages both for the farmers that are able to get much more value out of their wood, and it offers cheap heating for the residents. So it's a win-win situation for everybody involved.
So what sort of wood fuels have been developed?
The big technical development was wood chips and wood pellets, which is fuels that can be fed automatically. There is no need for any type of manual work.
District heating with wood chip may be a good business for local farming cooperatives, but pellet fuel has really taken off and is a big business in every sense of the word. Wood pellets are typically made from sawdust, wood chip, and other residue left over from lumber production. Specialised mills dry and press the raw materials into smooth pellets that can be bagged, stacked, and easily transported. The result is a high-performance, clean and pleasant-smelling fuel that's easy to use in a modern boiler.
Wood fuels do not cause additional CO2 emissions. Wood fuels in modern boilers, in state-of-the-art boilers, do not create any emissions that are relevant. You cannot even tell if the boiler is up in operation. When you're looking at the chimney, you think the boiler doesn't even work.
Technological advances have made pellet fuel more attractive. I visited a factory manufacturing boilers to see how new designs have revolutionised the home heating industry. Well, this is great. We can actually see inside a wood pellet boiler, and it's actually very simple. In here, the wood pellets are stored. This auger here feeds the wood pellet up to the burner up here, and in this burner, air is supplied in, and this controls the amount of wood pellet that goes into the burner. Up here, the flue gases rise, and in a very efficient way and a very effective way, this hot water up here is heated to supply hot water to the house with the minimum amount of emissions. So it's actually quite simple. Wood pellets burn cleanly and efficiently. The ash needs emptying only twice a year and can be used as fertiliser. In a typical house, wood chip or pellet heating is used along with solar power, an ideal combination. Of course, this is the nerve centre of the house, and it's a lovely boiler house, isn't it? Clean and spacious. And this is the boiler?
Yes, that's our pellet heating system. Here is the computer.
And this is the typical size now, wood pellet boiler,
Yes,
is it?
yes, for such a house we have.
Right, okay, very nice. So where's the pellet?
The pellets are here in our storage room.
All right. Oh, wow. So how much wood pellet have you got here? Is that,
That
how much will
are
that do for?
6,000 kilos for 2 years.
Really?
It should be enough.
Really, for 2 years supply?
Yes, yes.
Fantastic.
For the community, it's a win-win situation. A community that is heating with wood has its own resources, puts its own resources into value. It creates local employment. It gives you a 100% secure supply of energy indefinitely, basically, because the woods keep on growing. In Austria, wood fuels would not have been taken off if we did not have public subsidies. We have between 30 and 50% investment grants, and that really made the market going. And once the market is underway, you can bring down the subsidies, of course. But to kick off market development, it's fundamental to have grant schemes.
Our forestry or our crops can grow at twice the rate of those in Sweden or Spain. So it's really a tremendous resource. I think we could be meeting 50% of our energy requirement in the long term. In the short term, why can't we get to 20%?
Well, that's it from this EcoEye. In our next programme, we visit the longest and thinnest formal gardens in Ireland. We discover the fuel of the future in the least likely places. We examine the pollution that's literally blocking out the stars. And we expose the single greatest con job of the consumer age. See you then.